know I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it a back day. Yeah, I got game, God in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Google signing on, John to the Hancock, and I'm always key, I'm ready to unlock. I be doing big things.
Welcome back, everyone, to the newest edition of Once a Week. I'm Billy Jan Ludis, and as you can see, we have another incredible special guest, a recurring special guest for that matter, because our guest today and myself have worked together on so many different areas, but he is truthfully someone that's bringing the support, bringing the help in so many areas of life to people. He is the director of FIG Speakers, and he is the founder of Blood Flow Coaching. But guys, I tell you, that's not even the reason why we're going to talk today, because he just released his first book called the Principle Toolbox. Guys, I give you the author, Chris Kraft. Chris, I thank you for being here. I know we talked before this whole thing recorded, but I cannot wait to dive into your book and bring it to people right now. But thank you so much for being back on.
Billy, I appreciate it, my friend. You and I have done so much together over the years. I feel like not just a recurring guest. I kind of feel like we're just in your living room talking. So it's going to be fun talking today, man. I appreciate you doing this video, but I appreciate your friendship, man. It's been great.
Hey, right back at you. No, it's been a lot of things growing up. What started on a LinkedIn networking message has turned into a lot of great things, like FIG Speakers, like the growth of Blood Flow Coaching and Billy G Life Coaching, where we can bounce ideas off each other and help the other grow to help more people. But now, Chris, you've taken it to a whole nother level, which I think is in store for so many people, so many speakers, so many coaches for sure, when they can truly sit down and put their thoughts on a paper. So today with this, the Principle Toolbox, Chris, for listeners right now, probably one of our first messages we ever did on YouTube on Once a Week is the toolbox. And we go over different tools, or the concept of people having tools and resources in their back pocket that they can always rely on to help them grow themselves, to help them grow their mindset, their spiritual side of things, or just to grow their life, their finances, business, whatever it is. So you creating this book right now, one, how was the writing process? But two, what is this book? If I asked you, explain to viewers right now, what is the Principle Toolbox, Chris? What would you say?
It's a great question, man. And it's funny. I was looking back through, because I've had a lot of people that will ask me the question, hey, what's your book about? Like, that's just kind of one of the common things, right? And I'm actually going to read this from page 79 of the book. It says, I've been asked to sum up this book in one statement. It's objectively impossible, right? You can't sum up an entire book in one statement. But here's what I would tell somebody. I want to teach you how to apply principles in your life to solve problems, create consistency, and leave a legacy. And you may say, well, that's pretty broad. Here's the point, and this is when you say, why did you write this book? Let me describe it this way. Let me go and give you the metaphor real quick before we go too far. Everybody in life, and if you've heard before, you've already heard this, so maybe fast forward about 2 minutes. But everybody going throughout life, we've got an emotional backpack and we've got a toolbox. Well, the emotional backpack is where you put your hurts, your pains, your shames, your experiences, your family life. That's what weighs us down. Now, that is the job of the therapist, not a coach. I am a professional coach, personal and professional coach. I don't touch the backpack unless it's getting in the way of your future. What my job is to equip your toolbox, because most people live life with a full emotional backpack and an empty toolbox. And the toolbox is how you build your future. The toolbox is how you overcome adversity and obstacles. The toolbox is how you build relationships. So if we have life with an empty toolbox, or here's the other side, if we live our lives trying to build our future based on things like emotions of the moment, or comfort level, or past experiences, then what are we building based on? And the point of the Principle Toolbox is, if you're going to use something to build your life on as a foundation, then a foundation of principles is the best thing to have in your toolbox. Because then, instead of saying, how do I feel in the moment, I can ask this very valuable question: what principle is it based on? And your decision-making process can be based on principles and not just how you feel in the moment. And that leads to a fulfilled life. That leads to a peaceful life. That leads to a life that's more than just the way you feel. You're blessing multiple people's lives, paying it forward. But you got to start with a full toolbox. So that's really, in a concept, what the book's about. There's some bigger picture stuff that we'll hit as well in this video today, but that's the basic idea.
Yeah, no, and I love that, because truthfully, that principle concept, people need a ground to stand on. They need a foundation to build on for themselves. And the principles that we live our life on, regardless of background, regardless of say, religion or your upbringing, your environment you grew up in, the principles you live on, your beliefs that you live on, literally dictate where your life goes. And yes, religion, family life, environment all play a factor in that just as much, and they help build the principles. But with all the knowledge that's out there in the world today, with all the questions that run through our mind on a daily basis, we need to have a certain ground to stand on. It's kind of like you have, this was taught at a church I went to, you have like a boat on the water. It's connected to the dock, and it doesn't go too far, always comes back. Doesn't go too far, always comes back, because it's connected. The principles you're standing on in life are that exact concept, where you might drift off, but then you learn the principle or a principle that you can come back to that really realigns you again. And it's like, okay, wait a second. I've really drifted from this, but I feel that this could help me. So this new principle kind of re-shows itself in your life, where I can now live my life from this standpoint. And what that will do for listeners right now is allows you to kind of shift your decision-making, shift your habits, shift your patterns, shift your actions, shift your thoughts for that matter, to really live life from this new principle, from this new standpoint to how I'm going to grow my life. Where, I don't know, I'm 31 or so, but like the generation that, like, growing up, I think everyone does this. You see your friends, you see everyone, you see college kids, everything goes out drinking, party, and everything like this. To me personally, that was never a principle for myself. Like, that wasn't something I needed to do to go feel good about myself or anything. But I see my friends that lived by that. That's a principle where every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night they're going out. When I was like, I'm good. I'm going to go learn, read, do whatever the heck, hang out with like people that don't do that. But it's a matter of that example. That's a principle they live by, probably without even knowing it, because it's what they were built on. To actively choose what principle do I want to live my life from can be game changing. So with you writing these principles down, Chris, and everything, are these examples that you grew through in your own life? You've learned from so many incredible, I want to say speakers, but just people. You've learned from everyone. Did you take some from them, or are these truly from you, where it's like, no, this helped me so much because I went through X, Y, and Z? Like, what would you say to that?
It's a perfect question. I'm glad you led into that too, because I listened to a speaker named Myron Golden, who very often says, I don't say anything new. I just say it in such a way that people understand. And that's what this book is for. And I'm glad you introduced it that way. So if I don't answer that direct question, bring me back to it. But I'm going to hit one of the biggest reasons I did this way. This is a very thin book, 116 pages. For the average reader, that's not hard. Yeah. And right now in the world of authors and readers, quote unquote, there's a disconnect. Authors, let's start with them. Authors, we are wanting to write everything we know in a book. Yeah. And I love Stephen Covey, but Stephen Covey is public enemy number one of putting way too much stuff into one book. My mom just got done with 7 Habits, and she's like, Chris, I'm having to read a few pages at a time because there's so much there. I'm like, yeah, there is. And to me, it should have been at least 3 books. Break it apart into private victories, public victories, sharpen the saw. And so there's a disconnect right now. Authors are wanting to write everything they know in one book so they can sell it for more, or whatever the reason is. I'm not a judge of somebody's heart. But whatever the reason is, we're wanting to write these huge books. Readers aren't, on average, reading 300-page books today. Unless they're novels. If they're novels, maybe. But your Ogmandinos that are small 100-page books, your small, you've got an enemy called average. Some of these books that are 100 pages that are easy reads are making the biggest difference in people's lives because people are busy. People have their reasons and excuses of why they're not reading. Oh, and another side note, this is going to be coming out on Audible in the next few weeks. So we're going to have the audiobook as well for people who even aren't really readers. It's another subject for another time. So we're going to have the physical book that you can get on Amazon or order a direct copy from me, a signed copy from me, or you can get it through Audible. But here's the point. This is the first book in a series, and you'll see this little banner that says part of the 100-page Toolbox series. We're going to begin a series. Myself and men and women that I know are going to start a series of 90 to 120-page easy read books that hit some important principles, hit application, and then go away. So you're going to feel better as a reader because you completed a book. And you're also not going to get bored because it's like shift into a new principle, shift into application. And it's going to feel like you just picked it up by the time you put it down. So that's one really big thing. Now, how did I learn that? We'll go back to your original question. I am a huge reader. I read, my wife and I both read between 30, 40, 50, sometimes 60 books a year. And our coaches and mentors read that as well. So the people that we listen to we want to read and learn from who they listen to, because no one person is an island. We all are who we are from our emotional backpack and our toolbox. And just like we've had conversations before, Billy, I am only a culmination of everything I've read and who I've associated with. Now, I've put it together in such a way that, like Myron Golden says, I hope I put it together in such a way that the average reader can understand. I wanted to read a book as a personal and professional coach that my clients would want to read.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Not that someone else that's an author and a personal development coach would read. Like, I love that you have a copy of the book, but I didn't write it for you.
Yeah.
I wrote it for the average person out there who they don't have time to sit down and read a 300-page book. And it gets frustrating because then there's too much information. That's what this is for. This is a $10 book that I can put in somebody's hands and go, there's a few principles here that will change your life. And then when book 2 comes out in the series, then when book 3, I've already got 2 other gentlemen signed up that are probably going to be in our series. One's going to be writing on conflict resolution. Do you think that matters to people today? And the other one is considering writing on the introvert's guide to people skills.
Okay. That's
so
awesome.
So we're looking at writing simple, quick reads. But your original question, this is only a culmination of the things I've learned. And is it my own interpretation? 100%. But the wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon, said there's nothing new under the sun. So we're all just simply a culmination of everything that we've learned, and then throwing our own individual twist on things. Hopefully it resonates with people. Yeah. Billy and Chris are 2 completely different people, but the listener is going to resonate with one of the 2 of us a little more. There's nothing wrong with that, but you should widen your learning to go learn from more than just one source. In the back of this book, there's a bibliography that's going to have about 10 or 15 books. And what I tell people is, if you'll reach out to me personally, I'm going to ask you what you're walking through, and I'll give you a personalized book recommendation.
That's awesome.
Why? To give you a next step. So it's a culmination, but it's also something simple. Call it a Cliff Notes version of a lot of the principles that I've written. And I've already got 2 more books that I've started on as well. So a lot of good stuff going on, man.
Yeah, no, I love all of that. And, to kind of break that down for everyone, what you started on, Chris, is so powerful in the sense of, this is a quick, you held it up. That's 116 pages
116
right there.
pages. I think that's with the blank pages in the back too.
There you go. So it's less than that.
There
right?
you go.
But for people right now, especially someone in what I do for coaching, where I try and, very much like Chris, but trying to really help people change their habits, trying like in life, mindset, yes, spirituality, yes, but life in general. I see so many times for clients or new clients or people inquiring, one question I specifically ask in my strategy says is like, hey, do you read it all? And, I hear no a lot, which is, life is busy, no worries there. I hear Audible all the time, for sure. So it's phenomenal that the Principle Toolbox is going to be on Audible in a couple weeks. But why reading is so powerful, and Chris, you and I have probably said this before on some video, but
sure.
it uses your mind a different way. So for Chris right now to take everything that he's learned and all these great principles and kind of put them all together in his own way, that's literally every single author, every single great speaker, every single person, every single athlete, every single whatever it is, they've learned from the greats before them. That's the point of life, is to take what you learn, reach back down and pull the next person up. And they can learn from you, and then someone can learn from them. So when you have a book in your hand, it's so much more powerful. But when you actively set time aside to read, and something quick, like, I sit there and I think of back in the day when we're in kindergarten and we're learning to read, Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham and Cat in the Hat and everything like this. It's a quick read that we were able to use. Okay, I can get right onto what I need to do, and it allowed us to grow that skill for ourselves. Nowadays, I agree with you tenfold that some books are so long. I went to Barnes & Noble like a month ago and I stocked up on 10 books. I was like, all of these were like thick books. And I'm like, this is probably gonna be like the next year. And like, because of time constraints, which I understand. But I sit there, like you kind of mentioned your mom, she only reads a couple pages at a time. I'm like that. I try my best to read 1 chapter a day in whatever book I'm reading. If like yesterday I read 2 chapters, I felt on top of the world. It's like, they were shorter chapters, so it kind of worked that way. But it's the time you allow yourself to give yourself to grow. And that's the beauty of this book, because this entire book is based around growing you as a person, for whoever's listening or watching right now. So to take the time and read a short book and really implement that in your life, maybe you read 1 chapter a week, no worries there, but use it. That's the goal. Like, I sit there and I will completely be at fault for this. I've read books, thought they were great, put them down, never touched them again, probably didn't even do what they told me to do in the book, which is fine. But when you actually take the time to implement it in your life, you start to see it. And that's the goal. This entire Principle Toolbox is filled with implementation tools to help you better yourself, to better your life. So, Chris, that point of it, I want to make sure we emphasize to people, because a short book could be one of the most powerful things you've ever read. It's just a matter of someone taking it and realizing, oh my goodness, I need this. And then listening to that call of your heart where it's like, you know what? I'm going to dedicate, I'm not going to watch that Netflix show for the next half hour. I'm not even going to watch YouTube for the next 15 minutes. I'm going to dedicate that 15 minutes to me and growing this area. So that kind of connected all the points you said with like the short book, but also the accumulation process of all of these great ideas and thoughts that have helped not just you become successful, but other people become successful in their life. That's the goal of having a short book where it's okay, I can read this on to the next thing. So I give you so much credit, Chris, because taking the time to write it, it's a lot for anyone. You already do the coaching, you do the speaking, you do everything like this, but to set time aside to write, I give you so much credit because that's such a major strength that I think a lot of people overlook. And they think authors are just sending books out left and right because the bookstores are filled. There's no lie about that, but good for you. Like, seriously, to sit down and write, I give you so much credit for that. That's so powerful.
Much appreciated. I'm gonna speak real quick, if you wouldn't mind, to it, what you just mentioned. I'd like to give people who in your listeners may not be readers, or I don't read much. I'd love to give you some tools for reading, to read better. And I got this from a book, believe it or not. It's called Turn the Page, How to Read Efficiently Like a Leader by Chris Brady. And just a couple small things, right? So first of all, always read with a pen. Don't treat books, my opinion here, don't treat books as sacred. If this is not underlined and highlighted and dog-eared, I did something wrong, or you walked in with the wrong attitude. Like, treat this like a textbook. This is not a sacred, like, you can beat it against something. You can use it as a coffee. Just don't do that. I spill coffee on everything. But I want it used. A toolbox that isn't used has no purpose.
Right.
This book is like that. So make sure that you go into reading with a pen or a pencil or something like that. Here's another tip. If you want to get the most out of any book, before you sit down and read, this includes the Bible, by the way. Before you sit down and read, write down on a note card the 3 biggest obstacles you're currently facing. Because what happens is you will find that the book pops into your situation that you wouldn't have seen if you weren't intentional before you started the process.
Nice.
Hope that makes sense. That's a really big tool. Here's another one. Right here. I'm just going to grab the first one I see back here. Actually, let's go this one because this one's got a lot. Write down in the front cover the date you started reading the book. This one I've read 4 times over the last few years because it's launching a leadership revolution. It's one of the best in the world. So that's another tip. Why? To keep yourself accountable. I started this a month ago. It's only 100 pages. What's taking me so long? That's another tool. And here's a really big one. Some of our listeners are going to be the opposite. No, I love reading. I read all the time, read tons of books. Some of you are guilty of just putting a check in the box without doing something with what you read. So for you, here's my tip. And this can be me too sometimes, because some of us are personal development junkies. We don't really want to do the next thing we should do. So we're going to go read a book to tell us something else. And there's a quote in the book that I took from somebody else. It says, continuing education is the new procrastination if we don't apply what we read or what we listened to. So you can be procrastinating by reading. So be very careful there, right? So here's the tip there. Go find your favorite book. If you can't actively think of a book that matters to you, that's one big red light. But think of a book you really enjoy. Launching a Leadership Revolution, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, any one of those. My goal for you is find a book that matters to you. Go find 2 principles in that book that you're not currently applying well enough. Because then that will let your mind think in a different direction. Oh, I know this principle, but our knowledge very often gets in the way of our application because we think that just by knowing a principle, that's good enough. If somebody knows financial principles but isn't applying them in their lives, I don't care what they know. So when people tell me, oh, I know, I'm like, I can't tell you no. Your lifestyle doesn't show me that you know. You need to be applying principles. So don't just know things. Act on them. Use, at the end of every one of the chapters, just about, I think with one exception, there's a spot at the very bottom that said, use the tools, using your tools. Then it gives blanks to be able to actively apply what you just read.
Right.
Do that with the Principle Toolbox, but do that with every book that you read. Vitally important to learn how to read And by the way, side note, when people tell me they don't read, I'm like, can you? Can you read? Well, they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, then you do read, but you just read social media.
Yeah. Right.
You read video, you look at videos, you watch it. Like, and when people tell me I don't have time, you ever watch any videos? Watch YouTube, right? Listen to the news, listen to sports. Well, yeah. Then it's not that you don't have time, or it's not that you don't read. It's that you're making different choices.
Yeah.
So if you want different results in your life, it's time to make some different choices. Go pick up the Principle Toolbox.
That's awesome. It's funny talking about it. I can see the coach in each of us coming out, because it's a matter of,
100%.
trying to grow the person, take action, grow the skills, and then implement it like that. And one emphasis I want to make is the intention behind it. I think that's so powerful with reading a book, but anything in life, the intention you set before you actually step into something will dictate the results that you get. So if you're setting your intention for when you open a book, whether it's the Principle Toolbox, whatever it's people have on their desk right now for that matter, when you set your intention to what you're going to get out of it, there's so much power there. So if you go pick up the Principle Toolbox today, for listeners and viewers right now, and you sit there and like, all right, set your intention. What do I want to get out of this book? Am I just reading it because I want to put another completion on the bookshelf? Phenomenal. You're still going to get something out of it. But if you set your intention to, I want to learn from this and use it in my life, you become a sponge. And you absorb so much more from those pages than just, I'm just going to put it on the bookshelf. I finished it as another book for the year. Because I sit there and I think it's incredible that you and your wife read up to, what'd you say, up to 60 books a year.
Around 60 books, yeah.
Right? That's absolutely incredible. And I've talked to friends that say they read so much and everything. Like, oh, like, what do you like? How do you read that many books? Because again, I think a lot of people hear that and they think of these giant, like Harry Potter style, giant chunky books.
Right.
Like, that's not necessarily it. Like a book could be, yes, 116 pages. A book could be less, but it's a matter of what you took out of it, what you got out of it, and use it. But the more you expand yourself and read more, the more you can learn, the more you can grow, then your life starts to change because you're actively putting the effort into yourself. So I love all that, Chris. I think it's so powerful. Now, talking about the Principle Toolbox, as much as we kind of went over different principles for people, you yourself, being the author of this book, so many principles in the book for that matter that people can learn from. Is there a specific principle in this book that you needed more than any other for yourself? Not as an author, but Chris Kraft himself, that really helped you and kind of sparked the fire to learn more principles? When you needed it most, or was a time in your life, like, what would you say?
Fantastic question. So this is what I'll tell you. Chapter 9, and I'm not going to redo the 2 circles principle, because we've talked about that before, the circle of things you can and cannot control. Actually, chapter 10, apologies.
Okay,
but gotcha. I'm not necessarily going to go into that. What I'm going to talk about is chapter 7, which is one of the benefits of living a principle-centered life is to handle adversity well.
Yeah.
And I feel like when it comes to myself and what I see in my own life, I have spent most of my life, like most of us do, not handling adversity well, not knowing how to, because what happens in adversity is our feelings and our emotions get hijacked. And I think you would agree with this as well, especially we see this all the time in coaching. When people are what I call emotionally hijacked, when their emotions go up, their decision-making quality goes way down. Most of us, when we're in an emotionally high state, we make the worst decisions. When you look back at your life and you think, when did I make the worst decisions? You probably didn't spend time thinking through the bad decision, praying about the bad decision, asking other people what they think about the bad. You probably just emotionally made it. You emotionally said something. So handling adversity is very hard in the moment. Here's the key. Most of us aren't underprepared to deal with adversity when it comes, myself included. Therefore, I need to create a foundation before the adversity comes. So that when the adversity comes, I've already made what I called when we were in youth ministry, pre-choices. I don't have to make a decision in the moment because I've already made the decision based on a principle before the adversity comes. I'm driving down the road. I blew 2 tires on the side of the road. Oh my gosh, I can't believe, first of all, the principle of treating people well, even when my emotions are out of whack. It's not my wife's fault that I blew 2 tires. Why am I treating her poorly? I need to be treating her well. It's a pre-choice. Where am I going to get the money from? Well, I have an emergency fund.
Right.
So I'm going to take the money from my emergency fund. I'm not going to charge it on a credit card. Well, I don't have that. Make the decisions beforehand to handle the adversity. Adversity is coming in your life.
Right.
You're either walking through one now or it's coming. And if you are walking through one, another one's on. It's part of life.
Yep.
So for me, learning how to handle adversity well made me want to read more books on handling adversity well. Here's one of those. Well, never mind. I already pulled it out. Adversity Quotient by Dr. Paul Stoltz. He's also a public enemy of writing a 300-something page book, but this one is like 3 books in one. So if you could take it as, when I get done with this, I'm counting it for 3 books.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. But he teaches steps of how to handle adversity. I couldn't go through all that in the Principle Toolbox. This is a culmination. This is a big picture principles of things like this. And I quote this book in it a couple times. But it made me want to go search more.
Right.
So here's the real question for some of our listeners. Another one with that. Does adversity push you to want to get better? Does adversity make you want to shut down and quit? Because if it makes you want to shut down and quit, then you need a better foundation of principles beforehand. So for me, that was that chapter that really stood out. That kind of made me, it's why I put it as chapter 7 right in the center of the book. Because I'm like, this is a really heavy, and I even said in there, I'm like, this could be the longest chapter in the book, but it's not, because I'm not going to dig into the details. We're just going to hit how principles can help you. Living a life of based on principles as a foundation will help you handle the adversity in a more healthy way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's 100% in it. It touches on everything that we've already talked about, where learning principles, reading, applying yourself, but really prepping yourself for life. That's why we're here. We're living life. And if you're not going to use what you learn along the way, you haven't prepped yourself. So, you mentioned emotional hijack, and we even talked about that prior recording and whatnot. And that happens to everyone that doesn't have the ground to stand on. The principles, yes, or, faith would be a principle, stuff like that, whatever it might be for someone listening right now. When you have the strengths and the principles and the foundation to stand on that solid ground, like what you've learned in a book, like whatever it might be for someone listening right now, where you kind of always come back to it. Then you find yourself in the present moment where adversity goes wrong. If you do get emotionally hijacked, you're no longer in the present moment. Your emotions have run off to the future, or maybe even run off to the past, whatever it is. That's why I love doing my coaching, because it's like, all right, like, are you spending too much time in the future where you can't control your emotions because you're not there? Are you spending too much time in the past and you can't control your emotions? You get really negative because you can't go back and change it. You only will forever have the present moment here and now. Sure. So if you prep yourself so much to learn and grow yourself and be strengthened, what you're doing, and I believe this, I think Chris, you'll touch on this too, is that when you prepare yourself now, what you're doing is you're opening doors later. They've already been unlocked for you. So if you sit there and you read this book, The Principle Toolbox, and you really gain so much from it for a reader or listener right now, you gain all this stuff and you start applying it in your life. What you're doing is you're changing the results down the line, because you're no longer the same person. Because in the present moment, you allowed yourself to put effort on yourself and change yourself, to empower yourself, to grow to whatever it looks like for you. So you then, a year from now, 3 months from now, whatever it is, weeks tomorrow, whatever it is, you're a different person because you applied that information.
Correct.
The present moment changes at that point. The next present moment, adversity changes at that point, because adversity only comes to you if you're unwilling to be strong enough to handle it, and like sit there. Like, adversity is going to happen. There are going to be so many challenges in life regardless. That's the point of us growing and learning. That's the point of life, for that matter, is to come here to learn lessons, to grow, to elevate to your next level, and so on and so forth. That's why, you don't see little kids as coaches. There might be someone out there. That's why it takes time. It takes effort to grow yourself and then give it back to other people. So for listeners right now, I emphasize to you is everything Chris has just said. Adversity is going to come to you, but if you use books like the Principle Toolbox, or just diving into it, you use these principles, these tools at hand, you're going to prep yourself so well and strengthen yourself so well that the adversity may come, but it's not going to shake you because you're prepared. It's not to say, I have to prepare because adversity is going to be in my life. Like, no, never live your life in worry, but live your life in strength, knowing, if something happens, we're good. That's the beauty of it. But Chris, I'll pass back off to you, because we'll start to close this whole thing. I want to make sure we get good for your time constraints. But I'm very grateful to have you on to talk about this book. I'm grateful that you put it out there to the world. What are some lasting ideas you have about this book? As much as we went into principles, what principles helped you the most, how it's a quick read for people, but an empowering read for people. What else do you want people to know before we close this whole thing out about this book, and why they should go to the store and buy it, or reach out to you and buy a signed copy, or get it on Audible when it comes in a couple weeks? Like, what's the lasting message you want people to know?
I appreciate you asking. The lasting message is looking forward, because this is not just about handling your I love how you said the present moment, because all we do have is the present. And
Right.
the only way we can do that is if we have a equipped toolbox. So if you're feeling stressed, it's one of two things. You're violating a principle, because principles govern consequences. I use an example in the book. If I go to the top of my roof and I jump off, I could believe I could fly all day long. I could strongly believe I could have opinions from my friends. But as soon as I take the step off that building, the principle of gravity takes over, and my opinion will always bow at the feet of a principle.
Yeah.
So I don't care as much about what your thought or your opinion or what you think is.
Yeah.
What principle could you be violating to create the stress in your life? If you don't appreciate people, there will be stress in your life because you're breaking a principle. If you treat people poorly, you're breaking a principle. There will be stress. So when you identify stress in the moment, you're either violating a principle or you're under-equipped. You don't know the principle to apply. And what I want to leave with listeners and viewers when it comes to where I want to go with this is not a book that has all the principles in it. That's not the purpose. The purpose of this is not to highlight every principle in the world. It's teaching you the value of why a principle toolbox is a dang good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea for you to base your life and to build your future with a toolbox of principles. I do have 2 or 3 really important principles in there towards the end. And then I have 5 fictional characters to make it easy for our story friends to understand and apply as well, to help us learn how to apply those things in a real world situation. So we've got some of that in there as well. But what I really want to leave with you is this. The reason I wrote this book is as an introduction to what's coming. Because I'm going to be writing more books, and not because yes, of course I'd like to sell a lot of books, but a book is simply influence. I want to influence more people and increase the influence of what these incredible authors that I've read, I'm just a culmination of.
Right.
I just want to pass the influence on.
For sure.
I think it was Isaac Newton that says, if I've seen further, it's because I'm standing on shoulders of giants. And what's coming is going to be more books, more small, easy to read, 90 to 120 page books, and more books on Audible that are going to be focused on here's another principle. Here's another principle. So you can almost see it like you're going to Ace Hardware or to Harbor Freight Tools, and you're getting another tool. You're getting another tool, because I'm not going to cover many pages on conflict resolution, but the next book's going to. I'm not going to focus on introverts and teaching them people skills, but the next book is going to. And you may say, I'm not an introvert. Do you know introverts? It'd probably be wise for you to know how to deal with them. So every book that's going to come out in this series, I'm going to basically encourage you to keep an eye on this series going forward, because I'm excited for this book. Of course, it's my first book. I'm stoked. I'm excited, but I'm really excited for what's coming, because I could see in 5 years, there's 30, 40 different books, little books in this series that you've got on your, and every one of them's going to have a different color. Same idea. The next one will be red or yellow or purple. And these are going to be on your bookshelf. And anything you fight in your life, you're going to be able to say, I'm walking through conflict. It's time to refresh that tool. Let me grab this quick read, knock it out, and you'll be living a life based on principles. I'm excited of where we're going, because it's going to be helping you live your life in a more healthy way.
I love that, Chris. That's so empowering. It's so powerful for listeners right now. But what I love about having you on talking about the book is that I get to see it, but people get to see the author behind the book. Because I think very often we go to the Barnes and Noble, we go to the bookstore, whatever people have, we grab a book, and yes, like you have it, there's a little picture of the author on the back of the book.
But that's all we know.
Looking at that picture on every book in the world, like, oh, hey, that's who wrote it. You don't know how that person speaks, how that person operates. What you just said, Chris, about this book and what's to come down the pipeline and to help people through all these areas truly shows the man that's in those pages. So for people listening right now, that's Chris. That's the coach, that's the speaker, but that's the man that put his knowledge into this book to help you specifically grow and elevate yourself so you can live life at a higher level, so you can enjoy life at a higher level, so you can grow and strengthen yourself and pass to your family, whatever it is, but you become a different person in this world because Chris walked the path to become a different person in this world to then give it back to other people. So Chris, I love it. I love everything about this book, and I cannot wait for people to get a hold of it. guys, I'm telling you, the Principle Toolbox, as he said, it's available for you. You can reach out to him. Chris, you even mentioned the signed copy. I got mine signed copy. So people can reach out to Chris and get it. Chris, where else can they buy this book? Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon. If you'll just search the Principle Toolbox, Chris Craft, it pops up. And if you're going to buy it on Amazon, please go and leave a review. Because they care about those 5-star reviews, man. They go nuts on that. So feel free to leave a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and reach out to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts personally. If you read it, I'm not too busy not to reach out to people right now. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe have a conversation about the book and what's inside of it.
That's awesome. No, I love it. Guys, reach out to Chris. He brings so much knowledge. Heck, he's guided me in a lot of areas, and we vice versa with creating things. Like we said, as much as he has the book, guys, look into blood flow coaching. Chris is a phenomenal coach, as you've heard him talk today, and there's so much knowledge there. Reach out to him to see if that's an option for you. Look into FIG speakers. Chris and I have done workshops or seminars in the past, bring other speakers together to really bring you, the viewers, listeners right now, people that are trying to grow themselves, the knowledge and wisdom to help you do so in all these different areas. And, Chris and I have we're working together on that, where down the line we have more workshops available and we'll be posting those. But guys, Chris is bringing so much to the table. Chris, I think I hit all the areas where they can find you. Is there anything else right there?
I think we're good, man. I think we're good. I definitely appreciate everybody. My contact info will be in the Facebook post and everything else, YouTube post. So reach out to me.
Yep. Perfect. Awesome, guys. I thank you so much for tuning in. Chris, I thank you for being here. Guys, like this message on YouTube and hit that thumbs up button below. I've realized every time I do a thumbs up, there's fireworks on this now. So we're going to roll with that. But please, if someone popped in your mind at any point in this video, as we always say, that's a clear-cut sign to you to share this video to them. Not to help me, not to help Chris, but to help that person. If that person could benefit from Chris's book, phenomenal. If that person could benefit from some topic we mentioned about the book, send it to them. Help them. Play a role in someone else's life as the book can do for you. That's the goal of why we put these videos out there. So share this message to whoever it might be, and subscribe to Once a Week on YouTube if you're not already. We just broke 12,000 subscribers last week, and I'm sitting there like, wow. So if you have not already subscribed, become a part of it. Grow with this channel, because that means we're helping you, but that means we can help other people too. So please become a part of it. If you're in need of a coach, I said you can go to bloodflowcoaching.com, or you can go to BillyGLifeCoaching.com and set up a free call with me. I'm right there for you guys, because our entire goal is to help more people. But thank you so much for tuning in. And Chris, I thank you so much for being here. It's been another blast.
It's a pleasure, man. Every time. We'll talk to you next time.
Have a good one, guys.
I've been around and doing it, but now it's my time to shine and start proving it. I'm losing it, I'm moving it. The city is where I'm made, Bostonian flow, I kick it a back day. Yeah, I got game, God in a fan way. We the city of the champs, every sport we play. Spit wetter than the harbor, yeah, I'm flowing like the Charles. I be speeding on this beat, call it Turnpike Miles. Yeah, it's Buku signing on, John to the Hancock.